Lawmakers are pushing a bipartisan bill that would block members of Congress from getting paid if the U.S. defaults on its debt or the government shuts down.
Now, this comes as the default deadline quickly approaches. Democratic Representative Abigail Spanberger and Republican Representative Brian Fitzpatrick introduced the No Pay for Congress During Default or Shutdown Act today. The bill is designed to motivate legislators to prevent a debt limit breach or a lapse in federal funding.
U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has warned the U.S. risks defaulting on its debt as soon as June 1st. That is only 2 weeks from today. Joining us now from Capitol Hill is CBS News congressional correspondent Scott MacFarlane. All right, Scott, the president is currently in Japan for the G7 summit, but negotiations on the debt ceiling are continuing here in Washington. Is there any chance an agreement could be reached by the time he returns Sunday?
That sounds more bullish than reality. The president has designated his Office of Management and Budget Director and another top aide to be his negotiators or his representatives in the room where talks are underway. Congressman Garrett Graves, Republican from Louisiana, a close ally of House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, is one of the designees from the Republican leadership in the House to be part of these discussions as well. The discussions are underway, but as we talk to members of Congress this morning and this afternoon, it's become clear there are grave questions about whatever comes out of these talks or negotiations can muster 218 votes in the House and 60 votes in the Senate. There will likely have to be some unique composition of Republican and Democratic votes that have not shown themselves previously in this Congress. So with less than 2 weeks to go, the talks are an optimistic sign. But what comes out of the talks have no certain path forward here in Congress.
Yeah, speaking of which, we know that Republicans in the House already passed their debt ceiling legislation. We heard Speaker McCarthy really touting that. And now Democrats in the House are pushing forward a petition to force a clean debt limit vote. Some Senate Democrats are continuing to urge the president just to invoke the 14th Amendment to try and resolve the standoff. Is there any way that any of these could come to fruition without bipartisan agreement?
Well, there are some third paths being dug right now because there's concern less than 2 weeks out from an economic calamity that there's no certain path forward. Some of the backup plans needn't have bipartisan support. Some do. Let's talk about the 14th Amendment first. There are Democrats in the Senate and House today saying the president can simply invoke the powers bestowed on the federal government by the 14th Amendment and unilaterally raise the debt ceiling. The 14th Amendment says America cannot default on its debts. The credit of the U.S. cannot be questioned. The validity of the debt authorized by law shall not be questioned. But there's also this discharge petition. How's that for a Washington phrase? It's in a case of emergency break glass legislative maneuver being launched by a Pennsylvania Democrat that if it gets 218 signatures, Republican and Democrat, it just forces a vote at that moment on some type of debt ceiling raise, be it clean or otherwise. Listen to Brendan Boyle, top Democrat on the House Budget Committee, explaining how some of this will work.
In the weeks and months previously, there have been members who have made public comments on the Republican side that they would be in favor of something that's bipartisan, that they are against default. Well, here's a way to prove it. Here's a way to ensure that the United States pays its bills on time.
But it wouldn't be ready by June 1st. This might be a post-breach safety net.
Well, Scott, while we have you, I want to turn to another topic. Self-described FBI whistleblowers are testifying in a House hearing investigating alleged wrongdoing by the agency today. What are the key takeaways so far, and why is this hearing happening now?
The Republicans, when they took control of the U.S. House, wanted their own version, they said, of the January 6th Select Committee. So they created this weaponization subcommittee to look into government overreach. These three FBI witnesses say they were targeted for some form of retaliation for going against the culture or the politics, they allege, in the FBI. Democrats have responded saying these whistleblowers aren't whistleblowers at all. They're employees with grievances with their employers. It's going back and forth quite a bit. January 6th being invoked, Elaine and Lana. Democrats say these FBI agents ran counter to the FBI's mission of arresting those responsible for January 6th. And the chairman right there, Jim Jordan, says those FBI agents are being penalized for not going along with the FBI line on January 6th.
All right, Scott MacFarlane on Capitol Hill. Thank you.